Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sammy Snake Racing YouTube channel. This weekend, we had the final round of the Manufacturers Cup, which has produced some absolutely fantastic racing. And we have got an absolute banger of a race to share with you. So the race was 5 laps of the Nürburgring in GR3 cars. Tyres that were available were racing hard tyres, intermediates, and wets, and that's because there was completely random weather. Each race, each qualifying session was completely different to the next. So not only did you have to keep the car on the track, be fast and competitive, you also had to keep an eye out on the weather, your tyre wear, the fuel consumption. So it produced some excellent variables. So congratulations to PD for putting on an absolutely fantastic final round to the Manufacturers Cup. Now, I didn't manage to live stream this. I had a lot of things to do over the weekend, but I did jump online off stream and get involved in the races. I don't want to tell you too much. I'm going to share with you how it went. I'm going to just let you know it started off bad, but in the end, we got a pretty good result. So stay tuned and see how our final round of the Manufacturers Cup went. Okay, let's start with the bad race, shall we? A series of poor judgments and errors. So although there was a 311 points up for grabs in this lobby, and I thought I had a very good chance of being competitive and getting a good result, and I was the first one out of the pit lane, so I had the luxury of having no traffic in front of me. I made a series of poor judgments, and the first one being is looking at the weather radar on my outlap and seeing that some wet weather was heading in. So I assumed that on lap 2 the track would become very wet, because that is what had been happening in qualifying, in time trial, from my experience. So I thought best thing to do is put the intermediate tyres on, nurse the tyres as best as I can while the track is dry on the outlap, and then the wet weather will come in for the second lap, and just qualify in the best time that I can. Now, I'll fast forward to the point of where that didn't happen. I was very frustrated. Even though the clouds were over the track, it was only very light clouds. It didn't rain. My tyres completely wore out, and I had to abandon the qualifying session. So I didn't even put a time in, and that was a very disappointing start to this race. So due to that pretty disastrous qualifying session, it meant that we started at the back of the grid, but my mistakes were not done in this race. So because I'd not been able to learn what that weather was going to do, I had to quit out of the qualifying, and then I couldn't see what the rest of that weather would do. I presumed on the second lap it would get wet. So by the end of the first lap, I'd managed to get a couple of spaces back, been held up quite a bit with the traffic, and decided I would go into the pits for intermediate tyres, hoping that the track would be wet, the guys in front would lose time, but that wasn't the case. And again, my tyres completely eroded. Then I had to jump into the pits again. I crashed a couple of times, I believe, due to the tyres completely running out of life. And then, I was about a minute and a half, a minute and 40 seconds behind. Now, the only positive to take out of this race was we did climb a few spaces back. We got the fastest lap of the race. We had some good racing pace. We just made some really poor judgments in the weather forecast. So that was behind us. There's not a lot I could do. It was a learning experience. It was time to move on to the next race and see whether I could get a better result. So in round 2, there was actually more points up for grabs. There was 317 points. and it was also a dry race. Even though it was a more competitive field, I felt like I had a far better chance of making up for the first round. So in qualifying, we weren't lucky enough to get out in front of everyone else, so we let the cars in front try and, bridge a gap, so we could have some clean air. And I didn't do a bad qualifying lap, but the problem was in the beginning of my lap, a lot of the corners were pretty slow because I'd been too careful with the tyre wear. My tyres had got really cold before the lap started. So the first infield part of the track was considerably slow. There was a couple of mistakes, and I was also worried that we were going to catch up to the Ferrari in front of us, even though we did leave a pretty big gap. We did catch up to him, but thankfully for us and not for him, he had a bit of an off-track excursion just as we were catching up to him on one of the technical stages, the sectors over the mountain. And in the end, we put in a lap time that was good enough to put us in P5, to put us in contention. There were some very quick drivers in the lobby, so it was going to be a difficult race, but I had a much better chance of achieving a good result with that qualifying compared to our first attempt. So we're in a much better position now. P5, we've got 4 cars in front of us that are very quick, and we've also got a Toyota Supra behind us, which is extremely quick in a straight line, so it can leave you vulnerable to overtakes. I was quite concerned that could come up to bite us. My main objective though was staying with the pack and staying with the leaders. It's very difficult to make overtakes, particularly on the outer section, the road section of Nürburgring. So I was hoping that the cars in between the front runners wouldn't fight too much. It looked like they were starting to at the beginning. So I was conscious that I didn't want to lose that much time. I wanted to make sure we stayed with the front runners, and I wanted to do my best to look after my tyres and save a little bit of fuel, hoping that towards the end of our stint we might be able to make a couple of overtakes, and then when it came to going in the pits, because we've saved fuel, we wouldn't have to take as much, and we might actually be able to take the lead. The advantage of the 4C was the fact that it had pretty good tyre wear. I don't feel like it had the best race pace compared to particularly the Porsche 911 on this track with racing hard tyres, although it wasn't, I won't say it was that slow, but the advantage was going to be the tyre wear, and that is what I needed to focus on. So it was staying with the front runners, not fighting too hard, hoping that the cars behind wouldn't catch up to us, and hoping especially that the Toyota Supra wouldn't overtake me on the straights. The 4C had pretty good straight line speed, but it was nowhere near as good as the Supra. We've got 3 laps of fuel. We should have 3 laps of fuel. Porsche got that a little bit wrong there. Give him a nudge. I don't know if that was wise, because now the Porsche's, the Supra's caught up to us. More. Now, one of the best overtaking opportunities is this long uphill section where you can sit in the slipstream. I had elected to sit back a little bit because I know closer closely following, it's easy to make mistakes, not to hit your turning markers. And what we see right here with Kaza is the fact he just goes that little bit wide onto the grass, which I know he's got dirty tyres, and I think this is my opportunity to take advantage of this. I get on the power as early as I can. Now Kaza does the right thing here. He actually backs off and lets me sit back into the pack so we don't lose time. And that was a critical moment that I took advantage of. I was just waiting for an opportunity to present itself, hoping that somebody would make a mistake, and Kaza did exactly that. And now we're sitting in P4.
Oh no, the Ferrari now is also having a moment.
So for the first lap, we'd done a pretty good job of achieving what we were trying to do. We were saving a bit of fuel, we'd maintained the tyre life, and we were still within 2 seconds of first place. And we were just coming up to a really good overtaking opportunity. I knew that the Ferrari in front was great for handling and wet conditions, but it did lack a bit of straight line speed. So I was really trying my best to get a decent exit off this final corner onto the home straight, so I could take advantage of one of the strengths of the Alpha, which was its straight line speed.
What's the weather doing?
And catapult myself into P3 and looking at a podium position.
If I get a chance.
Now, there's not a lot that Jamie can do in this situation. He's trying to sit in the slipstream of the cars in front, but I got a better run. I'm coming past him at 177 mile an hour,
slingshot,
and there's nothing he can do. He just has to sit there and allow that to happen.
Podium position.
And now I'm in P3, chasing down the front runners. And as we fast forward to a little bit further into lap 2, you can see I've started to close the gap down now to the front leaders. I was still trying to save a little bit of fuel with some short shifting, but thanks to a few consecutive good sectors, we were now less than a second from the front two and 1.2 seconds to the car behind. Things were going really well in this race, but it was far from over. There was a long way to go, and lots of things can and will happen in this race, as you will see.
I'm going to go 3 laps, I think. It was a bit messy. What is the weather doing?
During this section of the circuit, it is pretty much impossible to make an overtake. So all I was trying to do at this part of the race was be smooth, consistent, not push the tyres too hard, save a little bit of fuel, and try and put myself in a good position before the Dottinger straight. So perhaps an opportunity might present itself. Now, if you're still watching this video and you are finding the race entertaining, if you could do me a huge favor and just hit the like button on this video, and if you aren't subscribed, please do. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers, so any help would be very much appreciated. Now let's get back to that racing action. So coming to the end of lap 2, we've managed to stick with the front runners. The cars behind unfortunately managed to catch up, but we are coming up to a great opportunity to overtake. I was looking at getting a really good exit, but unfortunately you see there P2 just had to back off. But actually that was quite beneficial because it meant it left a good enough gap that we were still in the slipstream, but we could actually capitalise and get another slingshot. And I was thinking, right, we could be coming into the final lap of this stint, as we were planning to do 3, and be in first position with hopefully better tyres than the Porsche. But there's a really peculiar moment here. You'll see I get catapulted up to 185 mile an hour, and I'll just reverse that and show you what happened to P2. It was very, very odd. So what you see is the Russian who was sat in P2, was sat in the slipstream, no cars near him, no cars seemed to make contact, but all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, some kind of net code issue which sent him off the track, gave him damage, and ended up losing him a lot of positions. Very frustrating for him, I'm sure.
I've got to go another lap. And I think my tyres are a little bit better. Kaz has pitted, but he'll have worse tyres towards the end. Come on, I've got to take advantage of this now. Come on. Damn it. Caught that curve, it tried a bit of power oversteer there. Oh, the guy who was qualified in first has quit the race.
So P2, who quit the race, was actually the guy who qualified in first, and I wanted to see why he'd quit. And I think it was to do with the issue on the straight. Look here, again, he gets another netcode issue. He's following behind, all of a sudden there's some kind of lag, he picks up damage, and he must just be getting really frustrated, and at this point hits the hazards, quits the race, and poof, he's gone. So at this point I was doing my best to lead from the front and somehow try and create a gap to the car behind, but in doing so I wasn't able to do much fuel saving. I'd done a little bit at the beginning of the race, but I had no idea how much the Ferrari in P3 had been fuel saving. You see, the Ferrari is actually a little bit of a short shifter, and Jamie had been very clever. He'd been short shifting a little bit more than usual, as you could see, and had managed to save quite a bit more fuel than the cars in front of him, and you'll see how that plays out later in the race.
Yeah, it's hard to pick him. Need a really good mounting.
Now at this point I was feeling a lot of pressure from P2 behind. With a custom slipstream it was extremely difficult to break free, and he was also a very quick driver himself. So I was just hoping that my tyre wear was going to be a little bit better, would allow me to have an advantage in the final stages of this stint, so I could somehow get enough of a lead coming onto the Dottinger straight that he wouldn't just sit in my slipstream and come sailing past me. But when I look back at the footage and I checked the tyre difference, there didn't seem to be as much of a difference as I was hoping. I was expecting the Alpha to be a little bit better than that, but there was only a little bit of tyre difference, to be honest.
I just don't want him to overtake me on this straight, but it'll be very hard to defend against it. Oh, he's had a bit of a moment though. That's good. That's really, really good for us. Didn't get a great exit there. He's got a better exit. Not a lot I can do to defend against this, I hope. Hope the Alpha has got the legs to hold on. I think it has just.
So thankfully we managed to hold on to first position coming into the pits, but what we'll notice here when we jump in the pits, I have 10% of fuel, P2 has 7%, but P3, Jamie, in the Ferrari's got over 20% of fuel. And what we'll actually see happen here is that Jamie actually jumps in front of me, comes out in first position, and P2 actually drops down, I believe, to P5 or P6 because he actually takes too much fuel, which makes things really interesting. And the other thing that makes it even more interesting is Kaza, who pitted a lap earlier, who had fresher tyres for a lap, has now come in to P1. So the scenario we've got now is the leader of the race has got more worn tyres than the cars behind him, and unfortunately at some point during this race, as long as we don't make a big error, Kaza is probably going to hold us up, which may allow the cars behind to catch up. And I was particularly concerned with the Porsche that was behind me because I knew he was a quick driver and I knew that tyre wear wouldn't come into factor as much because there was only 2 laps that we needed to do. So the pressure was really on. I was very nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen, but all I could do was just hope that we didn't get held up too much and somehow I could manufacture an overtake and come out with a good result. But it was really tense and it wasn't ideal, this scenario.
little bit of fuel saving. Hopefully we can slingshot these guys on the straight. Oh, Kaz has had a little error there. Yeah, his tyres are struggling now. I'm going to try and hang back a little bit. Time this overtake right.
Now, a couple of times we'd been really fortunate with the slipstream down the Dottinger Straight, but on this occasion we actually didn't benefit. I thought I could slingshot past the Porsche and then get into the slipstream of the Ferrari and just catapult past both of them, but unfortunately the timing of that, I just got it a little bit wrong, and what ends up happening is they slipstream each other and I lose out. I can't get into the slipstream, so I have to fall in behind, and now I am in P3. I've not managed to make any progress down the straight. That was quite unfortunate and a little bit frustrating. So now we're coming into the final lap. Kaz's tyres are really starting to die, and Jamie's looking for a move on Kaza. I am really wanting to make an overtake here, so I decide to go down the inside. Now, I'm not sure whether this move was strictly fair and legal. I just catch Kaza there, and in the heat of the moment, I kept going, and I look back and I wonder whether I should have let him past. It wasn't my proudest moment, but at the same time, his tyres were really, really worn, and I think he realised that he was probably better off just trying to sit in our slipstream and get dragged along than hold us up and let more cars come into it. I want your guys' opinion in the comments if you think that that was a poor move. I will hold my hands up when I make a mistake. I look back and I don't know whether I did the right thing there, unfortunately. So now it's a direct battle between me and Jamie. Now during the first couple of sectors, Jamie actually does a better job, and he starts to pull a bit of a gap out. I start to get nervous that I'm going to lose him. So it's down to me to catch back up to him and somehow make an overtake and not allow the cars behind to catch up. But if you see now, P3 in the Porsche has managed to fight through the field, so I've got Jamie to catch up, and I've got the really quick driver who qualified in P2, who's technically the fastest guy on the track, chasing me down. So the pressure was on. I needed to somehow get past Jamie, but not allow P3 to overtake me, and hope for a good result.
He'll be pushing like mad, Rambo. We need to get past Jamie on this little uphill straight. This thing, I need to take this corner really well. I've taken it awful. I've taken it really bad. I might still just be able to get past here. Oh, come on, I've just got to hold this now.
Thanks to a bit of slipstream and some good luck and a bump draft from Jamie, we were now in the lead of the race on the final lap. But it was far from over. Two very quick cars behind us. P3 pushing hard. Rambat, who's qualified in second. Jamie, who's been very quick throughout the race. And I somehow had to get a big enough gap so that I wouldn't get overtaken on the Dottinger straight with the custom slipstream.
They could get me on the Dottinger straight though, so I've got to bridge a gap here somehow. Come on. It was really bad. What we're doing, I'm looking with the Delta, I've just messed that corner up. Oh, he's made a mistake. Right, hold it together, Sam. Oh, this is so intense. Come on. Not great. Oh, and I need a really good exit here. That might do. Oh my god. I've got enough fuel. I think I've got enough fuel. Is Jamie gonna slipstream past Rambo? Am I gonna crash on this final corner? I don't know. I think I'm safe as long as I don't do anything really silly. Nice and safe, no aero moves. It's victory, 317 points. Oh, that was a good race. That had some battling, that had a lot of battling. And there we have it. We managed to get P1, 317 points secured. Now, unfortunately, we didn't manage to participate in half of the races because of the starting times with Gran Turismo 7. Hopefully they will review that and change that so people who work full time like myself can actually participate in the midweek races. But still, a really excellent finish to the Manufacturers Cup for us. Now, if you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like, and if you're not subscribed, please do. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers, so any help in doing that would be very much appreciated. If you enjoy content like this, we do live streams, we do helpful videos, tutorials on how to improve your driver rating. So if you like any of that, make sure you're subscribed. But from the Racing Snake, it's over and out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.